On a regular basis, students would say, "I have a question." "I sometimes responded." "I have an answer. Let's see if they match." I quickly learned that teenagers did not appreciate my attempt at humor. There are many different motivations in asking questions. Sometimes we ask questions because we really want to learn and grow in knowledge. Sometimes we ask questions because we want to see how much another person knows about a particular subject. Sometimes a question is asked to embarrass or harm the recipient of the question. During the week of his crucifixion, Jesus was repeatedly questioned by various Jewish groups. The questions were not asked with good intentions. Our text this morning is Mark chapter 12, verses 13 through 17. Later they sent some of the Pharisees and Herodians to Jesus to catch him in his words. They came to him and said, "Teacher, we know you are a man of integrity. You aren't swayed by men because you pay no attention to who they are, but you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Should we pay or shouldn't we?" But Jesus knew their hypocrisy. "Why are you trying to trap me?" he asked. "Bring me a denarius and let me look at it." They brought the coin, and he asked them, "Whose portrait is this, and whose inscription?" "Caesar's," they replied. Then Jesus said to them, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." And they were amazed at him. Alan Black points out that at the close of chapter 11, Jesus had embarrassed the religious authorities before the people with his question about the authority of John's baptism. They again had come trying to get him in trouble by saying, "Where does your authority come from?" And he responded with a question, and they could not answer that question without getting themselves in trouble. Now, the religious leaders send some folks to put Jesus in a similar spot. If he argues against paying the Roman taxes, he would create a conflict with the Roman authorities. If he argues for paying the taxes, he would alienate the many in the crowd who oppose them. The question was calculated to trap him. And so in our text, we see the askers of the question, the Pharisees and the Herodians. They were sent by the religious leaders. The Pharisees and Herodians were really strange bedfellows. They kind of had different goals in mind, but they did have one thing in common. They disliked Jesus. It might be better to say they hated him. They wanted him gone. They wanted him out of the way. And they were sent by the same religious authorities who earlier had asked about Jesus' authority and who were the focus of the parable of the tenants. The purpose of the question, very clearly stated, to catch him, that is Jesus, in his words. They were trying to set a trap for Jesus. And so, as they get ready to ask the question, they first begin by starting with flattery. This portrays their own lack of integrity. Talk about insincere flattery. "We know that you are a man of integrity." They weren't. "You aren't swayed by men." They were. "You pay no attention to who they are." Well, that's a correct statement. "But you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth." Now, they stated the truth there. Jesus did teach the truth. But they didn't believe that he did, or they would not have been opposing him. So their flattery was just really pretty see-through. They were not good men with good intentions. They asked two questions that interrelate. Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Should we pay or shouldn't we? Judea, Galilee, all the known world, was now under the control of the Roman government. Everybody had to pay what was called a head tax. Now, you had other kinds of taxes, but this was the head tax. A census was taken. Remember, when Jesus was born, his family had to go to Bethlehem for the census. You had to pay this tax. Rome insisted on it. And no doubt it was a matter of discussion among the Jews. Well, should we be paying this tax or not? You know, they detested the Roman domination over them. And so they thought they could put Jesus in a dilemma here. Is it right to pay those taxes? Should we pay or shouldn't we? And as we've already pointed out, Jesus could be in a bit of a spot, depending on how he answered. If he said, no, don't pay the taxes, they can go tell the Roman government, this man says we shouldn't pay our taxes. But if he says, no, don't, pay them. If he says, pay them. There were a lot of the Jews who would be very upset with him because they didn't think they ought to have to pay those taxes. Well, what is Jesus to do? Notice it says, but Jesus knew their hypocrisy. He knew the intentions of the questioners. Jesus knew what was in the hearts of all people. And so he very clearly asked, why are you trying to trap me? Jesus is here in the last week of his life. That is, his life before his crucifixion, before he's put to death. He knows that his time is near. He's not mincing any words at this point. Why are you trying to trap me? Jesus knows his questioners' hypocrisy, and he evades their ambush and sets a trap of his own for them. These individuals thought they were clever, but they were dealing with the Son of God. He said, bring me a denarius. Let me look at it. Now, you kind of figured Jesus might not have had a denarius on him. He didn't have much money, did he? He didn't carry it. He knew what a denarius looked like. He had seen one before. Bring me a denarius. Let me look at it. And they brought the coin. They had at least one denarius among them. They had one of these Roman coins. Now, Jesus' response was ingenious. You see, on that coin, issued by the Roman government, on the face you had the head of the Emperor Tiberius. And you had an inscription reading, Tiberius Caesar Augustus, son of the divine Augustus. Well, Jesus correctly reasoned that since the coin was issued by the emperor, it belonged to him. The emperor could ask for the coin. The United States government has control of the coins and the currency that they issue. If you don't think so, just try to print your own and see how that goes. Governments print the currency. Anybody else trying to do that messes the system up. Here we have someone asking Jesus this question to entrap him. What about paying taxes? The tax had to be paid in the Roman currency or coinage. And sure enough, they have one of those coins, at least one of those coins in their midst. And we believe this gathering, this meeting, of course, was in the temple courts. They had it right there in the temple court. They acknowledge by having the coin that they have been using them, that they submit to the Roman government in the sense that they use the money. After all, you needed it to do business. And so he says, he looked at the coin. He says, whose portrait is this? Whose inscription? I couldn't get the answer wrong. It was right there in front of them. They said, Caesar's. So Jesus said to them, well, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. You are using the coins that have been circulated by the Roman government. those coins really belong to the Roman government in one sense. And so, yes, pay your tax to Rome. You're already shown that you use the money, that you have no problem with that. By producing the coin, the Pharisees had been caught in their own trap. But we do notice that Jesus says, give to God what is God's. A person's duty to Caesar does not contradict their obligation to God, but is insignificant in comparison. What is the reaction of those that hear Jesus' reply? They were amazed at him. Another possible translation is they were distressed. And we notice that in one sense, Jesus didn't really answer their question. Jesus showed partiality in dealing with people. If someone came to him with a sincere question, he answered it. But if they came to him trying to trap him, if they were insincere, hypocritical, they usually didn't get a direct answer. David Garland says, the New Testament proclaims that Jesus is king, which means Caesar is not. We may owe Caesar money, but we do not owe Caesar the love that is directed only to God. The Christian owes Caesar something, but not everything. We must remember, as the followers of Jesus, that our first allegiance is to Jesus, that he is our king. Christians live in various nations around the world. And the governments in those nations really vary. There are dictatorships, communist governments, there are democracies. Really varies. And how governments treat Christians and treat the church really varies. But what the New Testament tells us is that we must give to God what belongs to God. And God does come first. When Peter and the apostles were told not to preach Jesus anymore, they replied, we must obey God rather than men. We have a duty to Caesar. The New Testament also says that is to the government. But the responsibility, the obligation to government is superseded by our responsibility toward God. Jesus is our king. First and foremost, we are citizens of his kingdom, a kingdom that is not of this world. Yes, Jesus was put to the test. He will be put to the test again before the week is over. But once again, his critics, his attackers, don't have a chance with him. Yes, you give to Caesar what is Caesar's. You give to God what is God's.